Unless you've been living under a rock for the last 2 or 3 years, you probably have noticed that there's a lot of talk about something called AI, and Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini have become common words in our everyday lives. But what does it mean from a productivity perspective? Is it really going to help us to improve our time management and productivity, or has it just become another excuse to procrastinate? Well, today what I want to do is share with you how I'm using AI to help me to speed up the work that I do every day. So before I get into it, I probably should just tell you the kind of work that I do every day. So essentially, I consider myself to be a writer and content creator. So I create content. I write, I create videos, and I do a podcast. Now that's just one part of my work. Another side of my work is I work with companies and clients in the field of time management and productivity. I guide them, I advise them, and basically I'm doing a coaching program. So I have a mix of creating content and working directly with clients. So how do I bring AI into my everyday life or professional life so that I can ease my way or improve the way that I do my work? And so the way I start with this is, where are my rules? Where are the rules where I will allow AI to get involved, and where will it absolutely not be involved? So as a content creator, as a writer, I will never let AI get involved in that. So when I sit down to write a blog post or continue writing a book or even writing a podcast script, I am not ever going to use AI to create that stuff. That comes from me, that's unique, and that comes from my insights from working directly with companies and clients around the world so that I can understand better where people are really struggling with time management. AI doesn't know that. AI just knows the generic, the general stuff and advice around time management, which can work and sometimes doesn't work, but it's not as tailor-made or bespoke as working directly human to human with an individual. So what I do whenever I write my blog posts or my podcast scripts is I sit down and I write. Now another reason for this is I just simply love writing. I love that quiet time that I have with just me, my keyboard, and I'm typing away, and I love it. It's just one of my favorite times of the day, which is probably why I put out a lot of writing every week. So that's where AI will never get involved. That becomes my boundary to where AI will get involved. But there are places where I have found that AI is just superb, and I want to share those with you right now. First up, metadata, and more specifically, YouTube metadata. This has always been the bane of my life ever since I started creating these YouTube videos. Every week I have to fill out the video description. I had people many years ago saying, please put timestamps in. And do you know how long it takes to create manually timestamps in a video? A 15-minute video used to take me about 45 minutes to an hour just to pull out the timestamps. It was a real time suck. And as soon as I realized that AI could do this for me, I was jumping into that straight away. So I moved that area of the video creation, timestamps and metadata, so video description and tags, I just hand off now to ChatGPT. So what I do is once I finish the video and it's all ready to go to my video editor for polishing, what I actually do then is I take the audio track, I get that transcribed. Again, I use AI for that, so it will just run through and pull out the text of the transcription, and then I can put the transcription into ChatGPT and say, please develop for me a course video description and timestamps and appropriate tags. That's just basically my prompt every week. I can alter it and change it just to stop it from being a little bit hyper. But that's essentially what I do, and that's one of the biggest time savers that I found for AI for me. I used to hate doing that. When you think about it, you put all your creative energies into creating videos like this, and right at the very end, you now have to pull out the description, the timestamps, the tags. Oh, it's horrible. So that's one of the first things I started using AI for, was to help me to save time developing the metadata for these videos. Next up is titles for my blog posts and podcasts and these YouTube videos. This has always been another one of those areas where I always had friction. I could spend hours trying to come up with a perfect title so that it would match the content that I had written. It was horrible, really, because you were always getting videos and people were always advising you to try this method, try that method. And if you wanted to help your videos get more views and get more clicks, or you wanted to get your podcast listened to or blog post read, it just felt that you had to get the title right. So another one of the first things I did was I handed over the responsibility, so to speak, of coming up with the titles for my content to AI. Now, what I generally do is, here is the script of my whatever the content is, give me a list of 10 titles, including subtitles, that works for this particular article. This way I can look at 10 and I can then decide. It saves me from having to come up with a title on my own, because the way that my brain is working might not be the way that the reader or the watcher is working, and so it just doesn't resonate. At least with AI, it takes an average of everything, and then I can look at it and say, yeah, I like that, but I'm going to change that word. That has saved me a ton of time. So generating titles for these videos or generating titles for my blog posts, yep, I'm going to use AI for that, or at least AI guidance, so it helps me to come up with the kind of title that I feel comfortable with. So my company is based in the European Union, and therefore we have to pay extortionate rates of VAT on every sale. And I talk about extortionate, we're talking like 23% VAT on every sale. Now, I don't want to give that to the customer to pay, so I pay that myself, which means every 2 or 3 months, my accountant sends me an email saying, can you please send me a list of all your sales over the last 2 or 3 months, depending on when she last asked. The problem I have here is I then have to go into my payment system and have to generate a report. No problem, it generates a report. But what it does is it just gives me all the sales over the last 2 or 3 months. It doesn't sort them by country because, for example, if I make a sale to the US or to the Philippines or to Korea or to China or Hong Kong, I don't pay VAT. I only pay VAT on sales in the European Union. So when I get ChatGPT, I download the CSV file and then I give it to ChatGPT, and then I ask it to organize the sales by country. And then, actually these days it's got even better. I'm learning more and more. I'm actually asking it to separate out the European Union sales from the non-EU sales. And it does a fantastic job. And what it also does is it totals up all the numbers for me as well. That is saving me about 90 minutes a go. It takes ChatGPT probably 2 minutes to do, and it saves me, I mean, it used to take me like 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on the time of year and the sales amount, but it used to take me a horribly long time to do, and I hated doing it. ChatGPT makes it so simple, 2 minutes. It's a job I hated doing, and that's a key part to where you want AI to get involved in your life. If you're looking at areas of your work and you think, I really hate doing that part of my work, that's where you want to be asking, well, is there a way to get AI to do that work for me? That would be the first question I would ask. And if so, you can then perhaps ask ChatGPT, this is what I want to do, or Claude or whatever you're using. This is what I want to do. Can you do this for me? And it will tell you what it needs to do or what you need to do in order to set it up. It's absolutely superb. Another area that I'm finding AI superb at doing is collating all the information on time management and productivity and giving me a weekly insight into what's going on in the world. Now, this is superb for me because in the past, what I used to do was I used to go and type in Google search and say time management productivity and then filter it by date so that I saw the last 7 days to see what was going on in the industry. It was a bit of fiddles and messing about, and I just often didn't do it. Now what I have is a weekly insight that pops up into my ChatGPT window every Monday, which tells me what's going on in the world of time management and productivity. It also gives me the links to the articles so I can go and read those properly to see if there's anything I can learn from that. This keeps me up to date on the industry that I'm in, which is time management and productivity, and being able to see if there's any shifts going on in the industry that I should be aware of as a coach, as a consultant, whatever. But it also helps me to stay on top of what's going on in the industry. There's a lot of little insights that I'm getting from AI just by this weekly newsletter that, well, not a newsletter, it's just a collated list of articles and an overall summary of what's going on, which I do read every Monday because I get the little alert on my phone from ChatGPT, say it's ready, and then I can read through it. Similarly, I do this for my rugby team as well. I'm a huge Leeds Rhinos fan, and every Monday, again, I get a short email or short message from ChatGPT, which gives me a summary of what's gone on over in Leeds Rhinos games over the weekend and some insights there. That has been superb because now I'm not having to search through the internet for this. I just need to go to my ChatGPT portal and I can just read those insights directly from there. Superb, and I absolutely love it. But linked to this, there's something else. So one of the many things I've heard about AI is that it can actually become your teacher, or if you like, your professor or your coach. So what I decided to do a few weeks ago was to come up with an insight, a learning thing, everyday learning insight that I could then read each day. Now, I did this for two reasons. One, I wanted to develop the daily habit of reading something that was educational. And secondly, what I've always wanted to do was to better understand the psychology behind why we do what we do and why some people are incredibly productive and brilliant at managing their time, whereas others really struggle. And I've always been fascinated with the psychology behind that. So I've asked ChatGPT to give me a daily lesson on the psychology of time management and productivity and to give me just this insight. So I now get this every single day. I also have a task at the moment because I want it to become a habit. So for the next 360, well, it won't be now, it'll be the next 340 odd days, every day I'm going to get this learning lesson, a lesson on how to understand the psychology behind time management and productivity, why some people are good and why some people are bad. And it's fascinating. I am learning a lot of stuff. And what's happening here is I'm able to bring that into my coaching program when I'm working with my clients. Not all of it, of course, but there are some times that I've read in one of these lessons about the psychology behind why somebody does something. And as I'm talking to a client, I suddenly go, oh, that's a clear sign. And then I can ask questions to alleviate, to see if it really is the problem. It's a superb tool for being able to self-improve and learn as you're going along. And I really, really enjoy it. And actually these days I'm looking forward every day to getting this particular learning lesson from ChatGPT. And finally, what I'm using AI for is generating, not always, but sometimes generating thumbnails. Now, anyone in the content creating world will understand that creating thumbnails is a real pain in the... Now, if you're a designer, it's possibly the favorite part of creating content, designing a thumbnail. But for many content creators who are more into the actual content rather than the packaging, creating thumbnails is a pain. Now, not so much with YouTube, because YouTube is actually quite easy to do once you know the basics behind it, but more for blog posts. What I find with blog posts is whenever I was looking for a thumbnail, I would go to Pexels or Shutterstock and I'd be looking for 20, 30 minutes for an appropriate image that I could use in my blog post. It was 20 to 30 minutes of time that you probably could save. Now what I can do is, again, I can input the script to ChatGPT and say, generate me a thumbnail based on this. Now, there is a key component to this. Your AI tools of choice will have varying abilities at creating images. Right now, at the time of recording, I find that Gemini is horrendous. It's just rubbish. I also find that Claude is not very good at generating images. Now, that is simply right now, at the time of recording. That could change next week, it could change next month. I find that ChatGPT is probably the best at creating thumbnails. So now what I can do is I can go into ChatGPT, I can give it the script or the manuscript, if you like, of the blog post that I've written and said, read through this and then generate me a thumbnail with these dimensions that resonates with this topic. And it does a fantastic job. But I've gone one step further. What I wanted to do was create a design style. Again, we go back to that style guide idea. I wanted to use a design style. I used dark blue stroke navy, a dark blue stroke grey hue, and I given it a title of luxury productivity. That's the thumbnails that we are creating right now. It may change in the future, and I can tell ChatGPT that I've changed it to a different style. But this is saving me hours and hours and hours over months, which is generating or looking for an appropriate thumbnail. Now, I've seen a few comments saying, oh, I wish you would stop using AI to create thumbnails. I mean, the thumbnail is a very tiny percentage of what the blog post is all about. The blog post itself is the content. That has no AI involvement except for the next thing I use AI for, which is proofreading. Now, in the past, over the last few years, I've used something called Grammarly. You may be familiar with Grammarly. Grammarly was superb in the early days because it did correct spelling and unusual word choice. But I'm guessing, and this is only my opinion on this, in order to keep up with the massive outflow of AI, Grammarly now is changing way too much. So I'm less and less using Grammarly, and instead I've moved, because I use Apple products, instead I'm moving now to Apple Intelligence, and because it has a button called Proofread, and all it does is it corrects any punctuation mistakes. I'm terrible with commas, commas, and it corrects spelling. And so that's what I want from a proofreader. Corrects spelling and corrects punctuation. So these days I'm generally using Apple Intelligence for all my written documents, because all my devices are Apple, so it's very easy to highlight the text, click on the button to say proofread, and it will check and correct any spelling mistakes or punctuation mistakes. It doesn't change the word choice that I made, which I may have done intentionally. And that's a great thing about that is, so the thumbnails, I'm getting AI to generate most of those. And also for my writing, I will use, or I'm certainly beginning to use more and more, Apple Intelligence's proofreading, which is superb and very quick. So that just saves me a ton of time, because I often miss the spelling errors. And then I'll get a comment below saying, you spelled X wrong. And I'm going, oh, not again. And so now I have to go and correct it. So now I can do a proofread without my writing getting changed. So there you go. That's how I am using AI today. It probably won't change in the near future, but I'm always looking for where is there friction in the work that I do, and could AI do something to alleviate that friction. And often I find, as I said, with my accountancy and the sales revenue and the VAT, that has been that's been a game changer, because that was just something I really hated doing. Similarly, doing the video descriptions for my YouTube, and also coming up with ideas for titles. AI is superb at being able to do that, although I would caution copying directly and pasting. I tend to change it a little bit, take from one and add in from another, just to make it more personal. But it does help me, because when you finish writing or creating these videos, creatively you're dead. Your brain is a bit low on creative energy, and then you go, oh, I've got to come up with a title. So this way AI can really help. So for those of you who are really panicking about, oh, I've got to learn AI. No, you don't. There's a lot of hype around AI, and there's a lot of people trying to make money out of it. take your time. I'm old enough to have gone through several technology changes, the internet, the smartphone, cloud computing. I can assure you that when it lands and it starts figuring out where it's going to help us, it'll just become natural for you to use it. At the moment, it's the Wild West out there. We have no idea really where AI will land. There's a lot of doomers out there who are saying, oh, the jobs are going to disappear. They're not going to disappear. Some jobs may change, but jobs are not going to disappear. Technology has always done this, but we're generally often wrong in the first place until eventually it becomes obvious how a new technology will be used. One example of this was when Apple brought out the Apple Watch in 2015. Apple just thought it was one of these fashion accessories, which is why they brought out so many different iterations and different band colors and so on. But within a few months, it became pretty obvious where that technology was going to land. It became health. That was the primary reason why people were buying the Apple Watch, was health reasons. You could track your steps, you could track your sleep, you could track so much things. So people started doing that. And so when you came out with the Apple Watch 2, the focus was on health because Apple had figured it out. That's what the technology was going to be used for. We're going to have the same with AI. Right now, everybody's saying it can do this, your job's going to disappear, everything's going to change. Well, no. Not everything is going to change, but I will accept that things will change. We will get better at doing things. That's the way technology works. It's just the way that we work. We tend to panic and then it settles down and we figure out what it's about. So I wanted to put this video out for a few weeks now. I just wasn't sure how to do it, but I decided, sod it, let's put it out there. So now you've got it. That's how I use AI. I really do enjoy using it, but I do limit its use because I am a human being. I love the creative process of writing and creating these videos and my podcast. I won't let AI do that for me, but there are the side bits where AI can really help speed up the production. Thanks very much for watching this video. And if you want to learn more about my whole system, then this video up here is the one to watch next.